Children, what they feel grief, they may not have the vocabulary, but they sense the energy around. Just because they're playing doesn't mean they're not grieving. So you think, oh, he's playing, she's playing, so they're fine. They're not fine. Please don't do that. You're adultifying your child again. Suddenly the child will grow up. The child will lose their childhood.
Hurt children are going to grow up as unhealed adults.
Yeah.
This is how you help the next generation.
This part is the chakra for breaking patterns. I'm assuming that it's for anxiety. So I'll just keep tapping it. Physical, sexual abuse is not the only abuse. This is also a form of abuse. Because now you're bringing up another adult, to-be adult, a future adult who doesn't know how to handle, difficult emotions.
Welcome to Season 2 of Soul Safar with Bhaav. Our very first guest is Kamalrukh Khan, who is a clinical hypnotherapist, a wife, a parent, and someone who has also dealt with grief. This episode will not only help you understand how children deal with grief, but will also give you practical tools how you can help them through the process. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into this conversation.
Hi Kamalrukh.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming on to Soul Safar with Bhaav.
You're always welcome.
It's amazing that I've known you for so many years and I've known you as the clinical hypnotherapist apart from a friend.
Yeah.
Every season I've decided to speak about grief because it is a basic human emotion. You were going through the process of grief while I was going through the process of grief myself. You lost your husband Wajid.
Yes.
A year before I lost my partner. You're also a mother, apart from being a clinical hypnotherapist. And I realized that not a lot of people speak about how children deal with grief. And there are two aspects to this episode. One is how children deal with grief, and parents haven't been taught how to help their children navigate grief.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought it would be very interesting to speak with you because of what you've studied. You bring so much to the table and combined with your experience. So, I'm going to now leave this open to you.
I am so glad you brought this up because it's true. Most of the clients who come to me with a lot of grief, and 90% of my clientele is about this.
Right.
Either grief that happened 20 years ago or grief that is recent. It's wonderful that we're talking about this.
Coming back to you, how did your kids deal with grief, the loss of their father?
So, Wajid was ill for about 2 years. And, when you have a kidney failure and when you have a kidney transplant, you kind of vaguely understand. There's always a maybe, he might not make it. It's always there in your head, especially in such serious cases.
Right.
So obviously as a mother, it was always there in my head. And the thing about my kids was I'd always spoken to them about metaphysics and spirituality and the fact that we choose each other and the fact that when you exit or when you pass over, it's your choice. It's not something that happens to you. It's something that you choose to do.
Right.
On a much higher level. Also, he had shrunk, he reduced weight, he started walking slower. So, kids notice all this. They notice the difference in the health deteriorating. And my son Rehan was about 7 that time. And he would keep 6, 7. So he would keep wondering, why is Papa not playing with me? So you kind of subtly say that, he's not well or he'll get better, then he'll play with you. So when Wajid died in June 2020, by April we knew, at least I did, I was sure. So I started preparing the kids very vocally that that it's a choice. We've had the privilege of having him in our lives and now it is his choice to leave.
Right.
And it's free will, so he can choose last minute also not to leave. But be ready for the fact that he might leave. And yes, there were waterworks and they cried, I cried, we all cried together. For my son, he was not so attached in that sense to, my husband, because when Rehan was 2, Wajid had left. So there was not much. I was the primary caretaker basically.
Right.
So for him, it was my reaction. He would just ape me. For my daughter, she was 16 at that time. So she kind of understood stuff.
Right.
And she started becoming more compassionate with her father, because by that time he was in hospital. So she would call him, check on him, and Wajid was clinically depressed by then. Because for him, his biggest thing was he couldn't sing.
Oh, okay.
He had this pipe, tracheotomy, which, into his throat. So he was not able to sing. And for him, that was it. So he was clinically depressed, and I knew it, I could see it. So the children would notice that, why is he not talking anymore? So they would keep asking me, why is he not talking anymore? Or why is he so cold with us? And I had to kind of explain that, no, he's not cold, he's just unwell. That pipe hurts him. And also, they get very confused. I mean, they have compassion for the illness, but they were generally very confused as to why is Papa suddenly crying? Because you had to talk to him on WhatsApp video, because he used to barely whisper because of the pipe. So we used to watch his lips and then understand what he was trying to say. I mean, sometimes we could hear him, but sometimes, we would just figure out what he was trying to say. And because COVID was going on, we couldn't go to the hospital to meet him. So he would be sobbing, he would be crying, looking at us and the children. So, they went through that whole journey. And I think that is a very important thing for them to see. As parents, we've always cried in front of the kids. Like he used to cry in movies also. So I think it's very important for children to see emotions.
But do you think that seeing this process, witnessing this process, helped them post the event? I'm going to call it the event of his passing.
Why? Let's say the word. Let's say death, because I think we shouldn't be afraid of the word death.
Okay. So I'm going to reframe that. Rephrase it. So you think that them witnessing this process of his deterioration and coping post his death, did it help them?
I don't know about help, because everybody's journey is different. Who likes to see their loved ones in that state?
Correct.
So of course, I'm sure they have been traumatized. As an adult, I felt helpless, because I thought of so many things that I could have done as a therapist, but he was so resistant. I don't believe in this, I don't believe in this. And I truly believe that there's so much of the universe that we don't know. And so it's very arrogant to say that I don't believe in this and I don't believe in that, because there's so much we don't know. So the idea is to just keep an open mind, whatever resonates with you, give it a shot, see if it works on you. If it does, good for you. If it doesn't, chuck it, So that is my approach always. But there are people who when they've reached their deathbed also, they are still stuck with that resistant attitude that no, this is nothing, I don't believe in it. And they prefer to suffer, which is again their choice, which is free will again. But it's a sad thing for people like us to see. And I would watch him thinking, oh my God, what are the things that I could have done? And my daughter would beg her father, please do therapy. Mama has done bigger cases than this. Because, there were cancer patients who've come and so many, and she knows all those cases. And he would be just adamant. Because for her, it was losing her father. So she would get very hyper, and sometimes she would fight with him also, that you're not doing anything, and why are you not doing anything? Why are you just giving up? Why are you not working on yourself? Because they have been brought up in that way, that you have to work on yourself. So she could not understand why he was, just not working on himself.
So since you deal with so many kids, what are the biggest misconceptions that most people have about how children process grief?
Most of the parents underestimate children. They'll say things like, oh, he's too small, he won't understand. Or, he's too small, what they feel grief, what they know. No, they know everything. Because children sense energy. They may not have the vocabulary, but they sense the energy around. And so I would like to say one thing to parents, that please pay attention to the children. Of course they feel grief, and children are like monkeys. If you want to teach them, you have to become that. So if you're teaching your child, be honest, you can't teach them, be honest, they will never learn. You start being honest, they will automatically pick it up from, they're like monkeys, they will just copy you. Children are like that. And that is why we say that, when you have kids, you become a better person.
Right.
Because it's a known fact. This is how you teach children.
Right.
You want them to wake up early in the morning. You start waking up early. They will automatically they'll watch you and they'll wake up.
Right.
So the similar way, when you are denying your grief, that's another thing. Don't show grief in front of the children. Oh my God, that is the worst. Why would you do that? You have come into this universe to experience emotions. The child is young, and it is, our job as parents to introduce them to emotions. Be it happy, sad, whatever. And it's great if they experience those emotions with you. Like my mum used to tell me when I was a teenager, if you ever want to smoke, don't smoke with your friends. Smoke with me. I will give you the cigarette and I will make you smoke, but don't smoke with your friends. What if they put some stuff inside? So what is she essentially trying to do is she doesn't want me to become a smoker. She's essentially saying, I'm just trying to protect you. You want to experience it, but in a way that is in a safe environment. When the child is experiencing emotions in a safe environment, which according to me the caretakers are the safest place for the child. It's the best thing that can happen for a child. Why would you want to stop that?
Right.
Because you're there to guide the child. If the child is scared, if the child is grieving, if the child is feeling sad, you're there to hug the child. The child is not alone. The child understands that everybody is crying. Okay, it's normal.
Right.
I'm not the only one feeling like that. It's a normal thing.
Normalizing sadness and grief is one of the... So coming back to the question, they don't understand grief is a misconception.
Completely.
What else do you think would be a misconception?
Now this is something that is, some parents feel don't show them the body. Some parents say show them the body. This totally depends on the child. You have to give it to the child. If the child says, no, I don't want to see the body, because sometimes the child, the body looks very different from the real human being.
Yes.
So if the child agrees that, yes, I would like to pay my last respects, then you must prepare the child for the changes in the body. Then you can't just show the child the body like that. That's where the fear sets in.
But sometimes the child may be too young to make that decision. What about
then? So in such cases, I wouldn't. I wouldn't, no. If I was in their place, I wouldn't. And even if worst scenario, if I had to, I would be constantly talking to the child that, look, it's just the body, but they're still alive in another realm. My favorite example is Marvel. The Marvel films, you have Wakanda, which is on a different realm, and my kids are Marvel fans. So for me, it's very easy to explain to them that, how it's on Earth, but it's on a different realm.
Right.
They come in and out.
Right.
It's exactly that. So they're all alive. So
using analogies of what they already know is a great thing to help them.
Yes.
To normalize it
yes.
for them. Also, what I feel, Kamalrukh, after there is a death in the family, children start acting out. So it's very important to look out for those signs. Did you go through it? Or if you didn't go through it, is there any tip you'd like to give parents out
children like Rehan got very clingy. Rehan got very hyper. Like he kind of got hyper insecure. He started getting afraid to lose me. He started imagining that what if mama goes, then what?
Right.
So all that. Death is very unpredictable. So you have to introduce predictability into their lives, which is a routine. So, whatever their routine is, try to stick to that. Once you're trying to stick to that routine, the predictability sets in and it gives them that sense of security, comfort, safety, etc.
Right.
That's another myth. Parents will say, send him down to play. Excessive activation, like excessive activity, bring games, bring this, bring that, send him to a friend's house. No. You're not allowing the child to process those emotions only. When you're sending the child here and there, the child feels left out. Okay, everybody is there in that room. Why are they pushing me out? You're actually isolating the child. So it's a very bad idea.
Right.
Let the child see everybody crying. Let the child witness it. Let the child ask questions, understand it. You will see the child becoming so much more compassionate. Because with Rehan, after he felt all these feelings, and honestly, at that point of time, I was not a hypnotherapist. I was a mother grieving, a wife grieving. And even though you have the knowledge, you're so out. I was so busy dealing with my children and managing them that I had forgotten everything.
And processing your own grief.
And there was nobody to help me because it was COVID. So even my own mother was not allowed to come. So it was just 3 of us together.
Right.
For like months. We could not meet anybody. So ultimately, we only found our way out. I remember telling you where he would take his father's pictures and he would, online school, so he would stick it on his compass box. And if the compass box shut, he would just get paranoid. Like, it's shut, and he would just open it. He started sticking his father's pictures everywhere, in his cupboards and everything. No, I'll forget my father. He was 8 or 9. So he had that fear that I'll forget my father.
Now that you have reached this point of the episode, don't forget to show us your support by liking and subscribing to our channel, Soul Safar with Bhaav.
So these things, you have to just allow it. I never said anything. I just did. I was just confused myself. And at the same time, when I feel if you don't know what to say, keep your mouth shut, but don't say the wrong thing. Because that will create more damage.
Also, don't negate what they are feeling.
I would sit next to him and actually encourage it. So if at all the compass box shut, I would be the one who would open it for him out of respect for his feelings. So he would feel that, my feelings are validated, my feelings are respected. Same thing my daughter did.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you here, but it's beautiful that you use the word respect towards your child's feelings.
Yes, very important.
Respecting your child's feelings are so important, because otherwise everybody's only like the child is supposed to respect the elder's feelings.
Yeah.
This is your respect is flowing both ways.
Yes.
And so it's so healthy that you use that word, Kamalrukh. It's very good.
Respect is a big deal in our house, and saying sorry is a very big deal in our house. And I have apologized to the kids. I don't remember my parents ever apologizing to me.
Right.
But I have made it a point to apologize to my kids. I mean, there's so many times I made so many stupid mistakes and I've vented on them, and as every mother would. Like even now when I'm talking to you, there are 10 instances I can think of where I'm like, oh, I did this, I did that. Oh God, I'm so stupid and I'm such a bad mother and all that. But I feel because I'm thinking this way, that shows I'm not a bad mother.
You're
I'm
aware.
a good mother. I'm aware.
Yes.
And because of my awareness, I, go to them and I apologize to them in the way it needs to be apologized. So because apology is not just about saying sorry. It's not just sorry and sorry but. No, there's no but. If you're sorry, then you're sorry and you explain why you're sorry.
Right.
And then you show improved behavior.
Right.
If I expect that from them, then I have to show them that, because like I said, children are like monkeys. So I have to do that.
Right.
And I do that all the time.
So we spoke about how, children act out immediately after a loss at home, and you're a therapist as well. So what is your tip for parents? When do they notice a certain behavior and realize that, hey, I can't handle this on my own, I need to get them professional help?
Yeah.
So what are those, are there any signs as such?
Yeah. Suicidal tendencies.
In kids?
Oh yeah, I want to die, I don't want to live, why am I alive? Restlessness, sleeplessness, temper tantrums, which are not normal. I mean, every kid, has tantrums depending on the age, and they have an appropriate way of showing it. But when it's shown in a way that you find is a little over the top, not performing well in your studies, suddenly the talkative kids who suddenly go silent. And the biggest mistake that parents make at such a time is they get on an ego trip that, no, I'll handle it na, mera bachcha hai. Therapy ki kya zarurat hai? They have this thing about therapy. And these are innocent babies. I want to just say to these parents, like, lose this ego trip of yours. Because even as a therapist, I go to therapy. Even as a therapist, my children, obviously must be having some issue with me that they may not be able to talk to me about, unfortunately.
Right.
And that happens with everybody. And they go to my colleagues they just call them and say, I would like therapy. And so I have normalized therapy in my house. Now they don't even inform me. So I feel therapy is a must. It's like, when you're going to an airport and you're carrying heavy luggage, there is a trolley to make your life easy. Why would you lug your luggage?
Correct.
Life is easy, There is somebody or there'll be a porter who will be like pushing your luggage or whatever.
Yeah.
You pay him and do it. No, what is this ego trip that no, I will only lug? Which first prize are you getting in this?
Right.
What is this? Like,
Yeah.
what is this stupidity? It's the same thing. It's the
that's
same
also because
thing.
we equate therapy with pagal hai kya?
Yeah,
You're
which
mad
is so
or what? Why do you need
unfortunate.
therapy?
And in India especially,
It
therapy
happens.
is opened up now. But earlier when we started practicing, therapy was like considered like a taboo. It
Yeah.
was, very few evolved people used to come to us, and I was just wondering, have I gotten to the right profession or not? Because this was just
You're on a podcast today talking about therapy. Clearly, you were in the right profession,
I know.
Kamalrukh. Clearly, you made the right choice.
Yeah, but it was a little intimidating those
Yeah.
days, and now of course with media and with especially social media, I think it's opening up a lot. Though not in India as much, I would like for it to open up a lot more.
Right.
What people don't realize is therapy is even for physical ailments.
Correct.
Like they think therapy is only for emotional. I have anxiety, or couples are having a fight, or marriage is not. No. It's for physical ailments as well. Hypnotherapy works for that as well.
Right.
Slowly it's opening. But coming back to the children, if you find any of these symptoms, it's very important to, because sometimes, again, it depends on the equation they have with the parents. A lot of the households in India do not encourage open conversations with the child. It's not encouraged.
Yeah.
How dare you talk to me like that? How dare you question me? If the parents are fighting and the child says, why are you fighting? The child is fired. Instead of being explained that it's normal, conflict is normal. But this is how you handle it.
Right.
This is how you sort it. So if you have a fight in front of them, then you make up also in front of them. So they learn conflict and they learn the resolution. This is not what we do here. So the child is only witnessing one side of it. And so they start, sinking. And because these emotions are very big emotions for children to handle. So even a small child who's grieving will be playing. But then it's like, what we call puddle jumping. You jump into a puddle and come out of it, then again jump into a puddle, again come out of it. So these are very big emotions which they are not able to articulate and they're not able to understand. So just because they're playing doesn't mean they're not grieving. So sometimes they'll be playing, then again they'll start grieving.
Right.
Again they'll be playing, again they'll start. So you think, oh, he's playing, she's playing, so they're fine. They're not fine.
Right.
So at such times when you feel any kind of confusion, you must not hesitate to go to seek professional help.
This reminds me about a friend of mine. When I was a child, he lost his grandmother and he had really taken it badly and he started really acting out, and his parents would reprimand him like really badly, not understanding that maybe even he's grieving. And then his father, because father was grieving, it was his dadi, so his father's mother had passed, and he started removing his, he started venting, he started hitting my friend, and so it became this really vicious cycle of this child is grieving, he's acting out, father is grieving, he's acting out, and now there's physical violence in the mix.
Yes.
And what would you say to something like this? Where do you break the cycle?
It's very important for adults to adult. If you're an adult, what happened to you as a child was not your problem or not your fault or not in your control. But now you're an adult. Now you have no excuses. You have 20 things you can do. Seek professional help, talk to a friend, handle it on your own. I mean, everybody doesn't seek professional help. So whatever works for you. And if you are not able to do any of those, then there is a lack of maturity. When there is a lack of maturity, you're removing that immaturity onto your child. So you're perpetuating that cycle.
Right.
And that is a form of abuse. That is a complete form of abuse. Physical, sexual abuse is not the only abuse. This is also a form of abuse. Because now you're bringing up another adult, to be adult, a future adult who doesn't know how to handle, difficult emotions.
Right.
He doesn't know, because for him, the only way to, express emotions is hitting. And that is why you have grown adults who hit women, who hit children, because they must have seen it in their families that, oh, when I get angry, my father started throwing stuff. Oh, that is the way I'm supposed to behave when I'm angry. So it's very important to break the cycle and first work on yourself. Everything happens inside out.
Right.
So you have to work on yourself first, that okay, this is wrong, and all these people know what they're doing is wrong. Not a single one of them thinks they're right. But the problem is they don't want to work on it.
So you know you're wrong, but you're making an excuse. So I did this, I know I'm wrong, but because.
Yeah.
So if you remove the excuse from it.
No buts. That's why I say when you're apologizing, no buts. If you're saying sorry, then you take full accountability and responsibility for that, and then you work on it.
Right.
So I think as parents, when you're not able to handle your emotions, it's a very sad thing for the child.
You know, when you're saying that, the one word that jumps out at me is to break a cycle like this, awareness. You have to be aware, and only when you are aware can you start the process of breaking the cycle.
Absolutely.
And breaking the pattern. So for anybody who's listening to this or watching this, if they see that this is a pattern that they've been following, this is your wake up call that stop right now. Stop right now. And it's okay to make mistakes. Nobody's crucifying you, but stop right now and start making a change in any small way that you need to do.
Absolutely.
Today.
It is what you do after the mistake. It
Correct.
was never the mistake. The mistakes were never the problem in the world.
Correct.
It was what people did after the mistakes that was the biggest problem.
Right.
You know, I'll tell you one thing. People who need therapy don't come to you. But people who are affected by those people, they are the ones who come to you. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
it's also, Kamalrukh, not only about what the parents do. Like, I'll give you my personal example. When my father passed, when people came to pay their last respects, I would say 90% of the people told me, now you are the man of the family.
Oh.
Now you have to take care of your mother. Abhi mummy ka khayal rakhna. Now you. So at that point, what I did as a child, I was not a child really, but what I did at that point, because I had to become the man of the family, I took my emotions, put them in a box and put them at the back. So I had become responsible for my mother's grief, not about processing my own grief.
Yes.
Many people, it happens a lot with men or boys. Most people don't realize how much a boy or a man gets affected by grief, and how insensitive it is to tell them to be responsible at that point about other people.
Yeah.
You'd say, be strong for your wife, be strong for your mother, be strong for your children. Arey, lekin mera kya?
Yes.
Yes, it is their grief, but it's my grief also. So it's something that people need to stop right
Absolutely.
here and now.
In fact, this happened with Rehan as well when Wajid died. And I think Wajid did it even before he died. I think 1 month earlier, I'm sure he must have known he was going to pass over, because I could make out from his expressions and the way he spoke. And every time he would talk to Rehan, over the phone on that WhatsApp video, he would say, take care of your mama and sister. Now you're the man of the house. And I would be so offended by that.
And how old was Rehan that time?
8 or 9, and I would be so upset, but because Wajid was ill, I would not interfere in that conversation. But many a times I have brought it up and I have told him that, look, you are an 8-year-old and you will behave like an 8-year-old. I want my baby who's 8. When you turn 9, you behave 9. And there was a phase after Wajid died where he would say, he'd wake up every morning and say, oh my God, I'm still 9. And I'll be like, yeah. He's like, I want to grow up fast, mama. And then again he would wake up 2-3 days later, he'd be like, I'm still 9. When will my birthday happen? When will I grow? Like, he would be in a hurry to grow up.
Why?
Because he felt that, now mama and Arshi are alone, and so I must grow up fast. Because I used to keep telling him that I want you to be the baby that that God wants you to be. If you are a 9-year-old, you're meant to be 9-year-old.
So he felt responsible for you and Arshi, so he wanted to grow up.
Yeah, you adultify the babies, you parentify the babies. You're not supposed to do that. They are still children. It's your job to take care of them. They are still children, and I had to sit him down and explain that to him. So small things like when it's my birthday, or when it's Raksha Bandhan, or when it's Arshi's birthday. So he has his pocket money. So he will plan in advance, based on his budget, that, and he's got very expensive taste, by the way, like his father. So he wants, he'll plan in advance, 3-4 months that, okay, I'm buying this and I'm buying that.
Right.
And he'll save money, which is great. But sometimes and I've always told him that whenever you gift anything to us, the budget should be 1,000 rupees, because you are a child. So I keep incorporating that sentence, that you are a child. When you grow up, when you start earning your own money, you buy mama n amount of things.
Right.
But currently you're a child. So you buy me stuff which is only, worth that much.
So you start taking him back to him being the
Yeah.
child.
And a lot of parents, they, since we're talking about grief, when they grieve, they start confiding in the children. That's the worst thing you can do.
Okay.
They will start confiding about their feelings to the child. Please don't do that. You're adultifying your child again. Invariably, the child will start feeling responsible for the parent. Suddenly, the child will grow up. The child will lose their childhood. It's a very bad idea to do that. If you feel you want to confide in somebody, talk to your friends, go to therapists, do what you want. Go to adults. What advice is that child going to give you that you are confiding to a child?
Right.
You know, like it doesn't make sense on any level.
Right.
Children need stability. The children need to know that there is this caretaker of mine who I 100% trust.
Right.
But यहाँ पे उल्टा हो रहा है.
Right.
So where is the stability of the child?
Right.
Children are not responsible for adult emotions. And little boys are supposed to be little boys. They are children. They have their own grief and their own emotions to process, and as adults, we are supposed to help them. They are not supposed to help us.
Also, when you say little boys, even as an adult, if I lose a parent or a relative who I'm close to, or a friend for that matter, that little child inside me who has lost that connection is not responsible for anybody else's grief. So what applies to a little boy also applies to a full grown adult man. And it's very, very important to know that.
And men are not allowed to cry in our society, which is the most unfortunate thing.
Yes.
I think if men cried more, there would be less crime in the world.
I agree.
Men should cry, men should express themselves, men don't communicate. So many clients I have where men don't communicate. The whole problem in the marriage happens because the man is not talking. I mean, a simple thing like that.
Yeah.
So they're taught that it's very macho to keep everything to themselves and to handle everything on their own. औरतों की तरह हम लोग रोते नहीं हैं. No, it doesn't work like that.
No, that, you know, I'll tell you what, as a boy who was growing up, the word strong becomes such a burden for you to carry. You have to be strong for somebody. You have to be strong. This word. So now when people pass and I have to give my condolences, I never say please be strong. I don't say that. And there are scientific studies that say that men are more prone to heart diseases than women because they keep all of these emotions inside them. And sometimes I wouldn't blame men, because it is you're taught, that's your conditioning.
And you're judged.
You have to be strong for somebody else.
You don't have to be that. This is my message to all the men, grown-ups, little boys, teenagers. Just be your authentic self. You know, live your emotions the way they are. Just be authentic. There is no shame in that.
Coming back to children, there are many grief triggers, like anniversaries, or for your kids would be your husband's birthday, or you know, these special moments during a year. You know they'll be triggered. How do you support them during these times?
My husband's birthday is on 7th October. We go to his favorite restaurant. We buy cake. We eat everything and anything. For us, it's like celebration time.
Right.
This year in October, we got a cake. In fact, I called a baker friend of ours and he put a picture of an angel singing, because Wajid was a singer. And so we put an angel and the angel was bald, and you know, towards the end Wajid was virtually bald. So the kids had such a laugh, and so you have to make it fun. Because if you want to remember somebody, you have to remember them in joy. If you have to think in joy, then you have to behave in joy.
Right.
So the whole day goes in binging, eating cake. We go to Indigo, which is his favorite, used to be his favorite restaurant. For me, it's about just celebrating.
Normalize.
Yeah, just normalize it. Also, you know, another thing is when people pass over, you land up talking about them very reverentially. बहुत अच्छा आदमी था. He was very nice. Like suddenly the worst person, you could have had a fight with them and he could have been your biggest enemy, suddenly becomes a saint. It does not happen like that. If he was a jerk when he was alive, then he was a jerk when he died, and it's okay to say that. You don't have to get all reverential about it. Like you have to normalize stuff.
So the balance of, they still had flaws, but that doesn't make them bad. But
it was who they were. If I have to remember Wajid like that, I don't know what I would do. I can't do that, because for me, he was human, no? So he made his mistakes and he was stupid at times, and you know, when we talk about incidences, even now, we always say, what a stupid thing to do, your father, how could he do something like that? So we all talk about it in a very normal way.
Right.
So that also normalizes it. You know, when children are listening to that, they feel like, it's normal.
Right.
Everything is normal. But the minute they start talking reverentially about that person, it confuses children.
Right. You know, my biggest takeaway from what you're saying is, if you have to accept grief, you have to celebrate life.
Yes.
And that's what you're doing so
Yes.
beautifully. You're
Yes.
normalizing it and you're celebrating life. And in that process, they've accepted death as a part of the entire process. And that's beautiful.
And in fact, one of the biggest problems that I think I faced, it was not a problem so much for me as much as it was for Rehan, was when he used to go to school. And when, you know how kids fight, and then he would be all out there, and then somebody would say, "Tu chup re, you to don't even have a father." And that would just bring him down. And every time he would come home and he would say, you know, this, and kids can be so nasty sometimes. And I would, those days I would say, you know, don't let it affect you. And my daughter would also say that, you know, says who, you don't have a father. Of course you have a father, this, that and the other. But it never worked on him. And I as a mother would feel very helpless. Like, what do I do to make my baby, like, what a thing to do, you know, I want to just slap those children, you know, who are like talking like that. Like, what bad upbringing is this, you know. And I just surrendered to the universe and I said, you know, just tell me what to do. And about a week later, they have this teacher of theirs, an old timer. And she's a Hindi teacher. And there was some chapter on parents and whatever, you know. So she, to introduce the chapter to the children, she spoke about her attachment with her father and her father's no more. And, you know, she was like, while talking, she was a little teary-eyed. And then she called Rehan. She had no idea about this. So she called Rehan because she knew that Rehan's father had passed over. And she called Rehan in front of the class and she said, oh, you come and talk to me about your loss. And, you know, I know you have also lost your father. So when he started talking, by that time he was pretty much sorted. It had already been 3 years since Wajid's death. And when he started talking in front of the class, the children are naturally compassionate. Any child, and they're naturally compassionate. And in front of all those students, he spoke about his father, he spoke about the loss, what he felt like and all that. All the children gathered around him afterwards and supported him. So many kids came up to him and said, you are my brother from today. And any problem, you come to me. Like, you know, I felt like, look, one boy showed his authenticity because of that teacher. And actually the bullying stopped. Because he was because he's been taught at home, be true to your feelings, be real, just talk. And he spoke. And he came home feeling so proud, Mama, you know, I don't know what I did, but now everybody's like so nice with me. And so I sat him down and I told him, that's because you were real. You didn't hide it. So grief doesn't have to only mean when somebody is passing over. Grief could also be when parents have separated or, you know, when there are fights in the house or whatever. Grief is a very varied term.
Right.
I think this is a whole lesson that the child learns. You know, there's a lot of challenges when you lose a parent. For us, it's the loss of a parent, it's emotional. But for these children, it's way more complicated than that because they go to school and there are other immature, you know, children around them who can say the most insensitive things to them.
Right.
So it's also about teaching your child how to handle that.
Right.
And every time it's not about spirituality. Sometimes you have to give it back.
Correct.
Sometimes you have to teach your child to say, you know, no, you give it back. So you have to know that balance between where to say what.
Right.
You know, where to create that balance in between standing up for yourself versus taking it spiritually.
Right. I want to ask you, for parents who may not believe in the energy work that much,
Yeah.
what would be a nice tip for them to introduce their kids to the concept of death, the concept of loss and grief in a very age appropriate and sensitive way? Because, you know, I don't want to advocate, I don't want to tell somebody you need to believe in the energy work or
Yeah.
not. What would you suggest for parents like that, something practical?
So firstly, you know, when you say parents who don't believe in energy work, it's like saying you don't believe that the earth is round. Whether you don't believe it or not, it is what it is. There is something called energy The sofa you're sitting on has energy. Inanimate objects have energy. Everything has energy, and that is why when we go to shops and there would be two identical statues, and you want to buy one, and the shopkeeper will say, select one, and you'll be like, they're the same. You can close your eyes and pick them up, but yet you do not this, because of the energy.
Right.
So ultimately, energy is a fact.
Right.
What I've always told the children, especially after Vajit died, was that it's just the physical body that goes. And I have, taught them how to see signs, or sometimes I just tell them, look, this butterfly, this black butterfly is always following us wherever we go. And so they associate it with Papa. So at some point in time, they know that Papa is always accompanying us.
Right.
When you encourage children to kind of let their imagination, go, it gives them peace.
Right.
It gives them that feeling of connect. You have to teach them how to manage emotions.
So, can you share with the audience? Of course, there is a big science, and only somebody who's experienced and who's learned it can do it. But if there is something that you can share with our viewers, who how can they help introduce this to their kids?
As a parent, the first thing you need to do is allow them to feel what they're feeling. If they're scared, okay. We start giving advice. The first thing we want to do is we want to jump in and give an advice. When my kid was young, when Rehan was 2 years old, Arshi was 2 years old, and when I would, be in tears, they just sit next to you, the children. They will not say a word. Make a child sit next to you and you're crying and you watch them. They will never say anything to you. They'll just sit and support you. And I think that's the biggest lesson. You're just supposed to sit and support them. You're not supposed to give advice all the time. We are always trying to give advice to our children. Like, oh, you're scared? No, don't be. It's okay. No, it's not okay. The person is scared. It's not okay. So first thing you need to do is allow them to feel that. It'll take 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever. Allow it. Sit with them. Later on, you kind of talk about it. Then you're communicating. What happened to you? How come you felt like that? So now while they're talking, they're getting their answers. They're answering their own questions while they're talking.
Right.
So you actually understand where it's coming from. That's when maybe you can say that, yeah, okay, there's nothing to worry. Actually, aise hi hai. Actually, waise hi hai. Like especially with children who get afraid of lightning and all that. You just explain to them the science behind it and they're like, oh, or sometimes children get scared of the bloodshed, when you see like Dabang, for example. My daughter was mortified when she saw Dabang. Because she was a kid and that was Vajit's biggest hit, and there was so much blood and all that, and she started crying in the theatre that she couldn't handle the blood.
Right.
And so we used to, I allowed that, and then later on I told her, I said, they take sauce bottles, and I just made up stories and she was laughing. So later on you can do that, but at that point in time what they need is security and safety. At that time, you can't logic it out.
Correct. So they just need that validation. That
that
whatever I'm feeling, I'm allowed to feel.
It's okay to feel that.
It's okay to feel that.
Third very important technique is, sometimes during exams, especially my daughter, she's a perfectionist. She wants everything for her. 99% is also less. She's one of those weirdos. So when she would get 89 or 90, and or she would get too much anxiety during exams. So you teach them techniques. One is the emotional freedom technique, where you tap.
Okay.
It's a technique where you tap.
Oh, I'm very interested. Can you just explain that to me?
So the tapping technique is normally, this part is the chakra for breaking patterns.
Okay.
This, the karate chop.
This one.
Yeah. If I'm assuming that it's for anxiety, so I'll just keep tapping it and I'll say, even though I'm feeling anxious and even though I'm feeling, and whatever is, I'm just candidly saying that, even though I'm feeling confused, I choose to heal and integrate that part of me. I choose to love and accept myself fully and completely. I choose to live in peace and harmony with myself and my surroundings. Even though, even though, when you do it 3-4 times, then you breathe out. You breathe out that thing 7 times.
Right.
Then a number will come into your head out of 10. 8. Okay, do it again. Then the number will become 6. Then the number will become 2. Then the number will become 0.
So
It'll automatically happening. Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't tell them that the number is supposed to reduce or increase.
Right.
I just tell them throw a number and invariably the number will reduce.
So basically I'm supposed to say that even though I'm feeling so anxious.
Yeah, even though it's okay. I'm feeling anxious. I don't know what to do with this anxiety. I'm frustrated. I can't handle it. I think I'm going to fail. I'm worried about what people will think of me. I choose to heal and integrate that part of me.
Okay.
That part of me that is judging myself. That part of me that is pushing myself. That
Right.
so whatever comes into your mind, but continuously tap.
Can I ask you, what is the sign? I know tapping is another episode in itself.
Yeah.
But what is if you have to tell me in like 2 lines, what is the science behind tapping to release or integrate?
So like I said, your body has different chakras, right? So like this is the chakra of communication, of self-esteem, self-confidence, the throat.
Right.
So people who are not very confident, for example, or have low self-esteem, invariably will get colds and coughs, will get sore throats very easily. So you can make out this, the stomach, the digestive area is the solar plexus. This is the hub of control.
Right.
So, either you are too controlling or somebody else is too controlling of you.
Correct.
But it's control. So they will have digestive issues, loose motions hote rahega, constipation hoga.
It's so beautiful that you're saying it, because now that you say it, I realize every time, in case if I'm finding something and I lose something, if I can't find something and it's really important, the first thing that will happen is I'll run to the loo.
Yeah.
Because now I realize that in my head, maybe I feel like I've lost control.
Yes.
I've lost control over the situation, and that's why the digestive issue starts.
Yes, even loose motions, when people just get loose motions out of the blue, you have to check yourself and say, where am I losing, where do I feel like I'm losing control?
Right. Right.
Where am I feeling like I've just lost grip? I don't know what to do. I can't find my bearings.
Right.
You will understand. And again, you have to allow your body to do that.
Right.
Since most people will take the first tablet. What you're doing is you're not allowing your body. Your body has its own wisdom. Your body knows how to heal. You don't need all this. Once you're in sync with your body, mind and body is in sync, your body knows what to do. Do you believe that your body knows what to do? Which is not to say don't take medicine. Of course take medicine, but give it time. If you're having loose motions, for example, take one day off. Let it happen. Try and figure out where am I kind of losing control. Work on that automatically. If you're having stomach pains and cramps and all, then it's different that you take medication.
Right.
But even there, you can question yourself.
Right.
But we are all humans and we can't bear pain, so we all want to take medication. Yeah. But to what extent?
Right.
Is the thing. So like I said, one is tapping. Another thing is giving that emotion this is the favorite of my kids, where if I say, you're feeling anxious, okay, where is the anxiety? So somebody will say, it's feeling in my stomach. Somebody will say, I'm feeling it in my chest. So I'll be like, okay, you're feeling it in your chest, get it out and give it a shape. It's standing in front of you. Talk to it.
So once you give it a shape, what happens?
So you give it a shape. Yeah, so you give it a shape, you give it a color, you give it a texture. Why am I doing that? When I say give it a shape, you just say triangle. But when I say give it a color, you look deeper into it. So I'm basically, this is a trick where I'm making you focus on that triangle. Then I'm saying, okay, look at the texture. Now you're going even deeper into it. So it's basically, it doesn't matter what it is, but it's making the client or making the person focus on that object. And then you look at it and say, okay, this represents the anxiety. Never claim anxiety. Never say my anxiety. You were not born with it. Anything you're born with is yours.
Correct.
It's not your anxiety. Don't claim ownership, because then it becomes yours. So the anxiety, this is what symbolizes it. Let me accept it for what is it. The same way when we say, I'm angry and I'm sad and I'm scared, how we sit and say, accept it. So same way we are accepting this and we are saying, look, I accept your presence in my life.
Right.
I accept my need for your presence in my life. I accept that I'm unable to let you go.
Right.
Like if somebody puts a hot coal in my hands, I'm not going to think, okay, it's hot, my hands are burning now, okay, should I throw it, should I not throw it? You're not thinking, you're just dumping it.
Right.
And yet when you have anxiety, you're not able to dump it.
Right.
It's still uncomfortable. So what is it? Why am I holding on to it? So you have a conversation with it. That I know you're here for a reason. I'm willing to learn the reason. I accept your presence. And the thing will start changing. Right. It'll become smaller. And as per whatever, sometimes it flies off. Right. Sometimes it grows wings. Like Rehan is very innovative. So things like that happen. Invariably it goes and they start feeling better.
So this is like a great tip for parenting.
It's a very nice thing. Or never leave. Now that thing has come out, but there's a vacuum. So then you have to say, okay, what would you like to fill it with? It's like a jar. So what would you like to fill it with? So the kids will say, oh, I want lots of confidence, or I want lots of love, or I want, okay. So now imagine this big crystal ball coming, it's shining and all that. Glitter. I have had kids who say disco ball and all.
If I had come to you, I'd say chocolates, because I was that child.
Rehan says cupcakes. So yeah, same. So, you you kind of replace. So now you've removed the anxiety and you've replaced it with confidence or replaced it with self-love, whatever.
Right.
Depending on what you want. But you
Right.
never put words into their mouth. Their body has its own wisdom. You have to go by that.
Right.
So there are many techniques as parents we can use,
Right.
To sort out issues.
Yeah.
And moreover, they see me do all of this. So
they believe.
yeah, apne aap they will learn.
You know, where grief is concerned, time plays a very, very important role.
Yes.
And I have seen a lot of adults struggling with the fact that so much time has passed. What if I forget this person?
Yeah.
Because as time passes and you continue healing, there is a certain amount of erasure to the new memories, because I know
Yes.
new memories being formed. Do children also have these fears about so much time has passed? What if I forget Papa? What if I forget Dadi? What if I forget this
Oh,
person?
yes.
And
Yes.
again, I'm asking you for a tip for parents. What would you say to them? How do you help them here?
For children, it's in and out. They'll get into that zone and then they'll come out, because like I said earlier, it's too heavy for children. Grief is a very heavy emotion for children, which they can't carry. So it's like when you go to the airport and something is too heavy, you put it down for a bit. You relax and then you pick it up again. That's exactly what they do. They kind of put the emotion down, do other stuff, play football, play a game, then again come back to it. It's a natural process.
Right.
Grieving is something which is natural. They are going to miss that member of the family. They are going to feel all the emotions, and I think as parents we just have to support that. Rehan used to feel that way, like I said, where he would be so afraid that he'll forget his father. It's just a phase, because eventually, like I said, your body and your mind has its own wisdom.
Right.
And they kind of just figure it out.
Right.
Sometimes you don't have to give advice. Sometimes you just have to support them, give them space, hold space for them. That's it.
Right.
So anytime they feel I'm going to forget and they start crying, sit with them. Hug them, hold them, comfort them, show them pictures. That was our standard thing. We would just bring out all the albums and look at and tell him the stories. This happened then, that happened then. And he would keep saying, why don't I remember this? I said, because you were 1 year old. And so he says, oh, if I was 1 year old and I can't remember it, I'm 9 and I can't remember it. If I become 19, 10 years later, I won't remember what he was when I was 9. I said, no, that doesn't happen, because scientifically. So then I will say that your brain was different when you were 1. Your brain is different when you're 9. You're never going to forget him. Then once I said to him, you look like your father. I mean, look in the mirror. You have his eyes, or you have his smile, or you have this. So, somewhere down the line, it brings that connection that, my eyes are like my papa.
Okay, so I'm going to now kind of throw a curveball here.
Huh.
Now, see, when it's a parent, you can tell them, see, you look like them. What if your child is grieving a friend's loss? And they're saying, oh my God, if time passes, I'm going to forget my friend. Now, in that case, what would you tell the child?
I would say it's not so much about forgetting as much as it's about enjoying all these moments. You have to live in the present, which is something I've always trained my children. You live in the now. If you're living in the now, as long as you remember all the fun you had and all the joy you had, make it joyful. You're never going to forget joy. Why would you forget joy? Do we ever forget joy? We forget sadness, but we don't forget joy. So if you remember the person with joy, they always stay with you. But if you remember the person with sadness, then you want to forget it, because it's not nice. It doesn't feel nice in your heart when you're sad.
Right.
So you be joyful about it and you'll always remember them.
Right. Yeah, because they say scientifically that your brain blocks out any memories that are sad.
Yeah.
So you're saying convert the feeling of the memory.
Not convert, but I'm sure if you miss somebody that much, means they must have been close to you.
Yes.
Means you must have had good times with them. And if you've had good times with them, let's remember those good times.
Right.
Rather than remembering the unpleasant time where the person was sick and in bed and in hospital. Let's not remember that.
Right.
Let's just remember the good times.
So I'm going to ask you a question now as a takeaway for our viewers. If you have to give them 3 tips on how to help their kids who may be dealing with grief, or the child inside them who may be struggling with grief, what are the 3 tips to help them cope in a healthy way?
Number 1 tip would be patience. Just let them be. Number 2 would be stop being hyper. Stop projecting your what should be to the child. There is no should be. It is what it is. Everybody's grief is different.
Right.
So don't project your phobias and grief onto the child. ये जल्दी क्यों ठीक नहीं हो रहा है? No. Just just let it be.
Right.
Allow the child to be authentic.
Right.
And thirdly and most importantly, leave communication lines open. Communication is very important.
Right.
Like, I think that should be number one. Keep talking to the child, keep communicating with the child, keep allowing the child to communicate with you.
Right.
Stop giving too much advice. I don't mean that communication. I mean communication in terms of, when the child feels a certain feeling, validate that feeling. Yeah, even I miss him. You miss him? Oh yeah, even I miss him. So the child knows that it's normal. That this is not abnormal what I'm feeling.
Right. And from whatever you've said, if I may add a fourth point, is inclusion.
Yes.
Include them in the process
Absolutely.
of grieving. Don't
Yes.
just let them be
Yeah.
an outsider to the process.
Yes.
Because that's what I learned from whatever you said.
Yes.
And I can't thank you enough, Kamalrukh. And I'm sure there'll be so many people out there who'll thank you after watching this podcast or hearing this podcast, because it's very important to start this dialogue.
Yes.
It's not, I'm hoping this is not the only podcast that people talk about how children deal with grief, but it is so important to start this conversation.
Yes.
Because hurt children are going to grow up as unhealed adults.
Yeah,
and it's
totally.
very important. This is how you help the next generation.
Yes.
And I'm so happy and I'm so grateful that you came here and you shared your personal life stories and your wisdom as a therapist with
You're
whoever's ready to
always
listen to.
welcome.
Thank you, Kamalrukh.
Always welcome. I had such a great time.
Me too.
I hope you liked this episode. Please help us grow by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel. We will see you in 2 weeks with yet another episode of Soul Safar with Bhaav. Now healing has a face.